In pure Nightmare Maven fashion, I am taking a patron request and just basically doing whatever I want. But when he made his request, Des did say a Carmilla adaptation of your choice. So my choice it is. Hey there, creepy peeps. I'm Vicky, and we talk about spooky things all year round on this channel. If you also like spooky things all year round, you should subscribe. This is a hell of a way to introduce myself, but I'm also a raging homosexual. I feel like that piece of information is important context for the rest of this video. As you can tell from the title already, we're talking about Carmilla adaptations. So Carmilla is a novella published in 1872 by J. Sheridan Le Fanu. It's one of the earlier works of vampire fiction, predating Bram Stoker's Dracula by 26 years. The story starts with a carriage crash that leaves the mysterious Carmilla unconscious. Our narrator, Laura, and her father take Carmilla in to recover. As Carmilla recovers, she and Laura become closer, but Laura starts having strange dreams, leading others to believe Carmilla may be a creature of the night. The influence of Carmilla has spurned many shows, many books, and basically any lesbian vampire piece of media is related back to Carmilla in some way, whether or not it's actually a direct adaptation. I did do a video about lesbian vampire movies that you can watch up here. You think I would know which side it is by now. That video, though, is almost 2 years old, and I've seen other lesbian vampire movies since then, so I thought I would share some of my more recent to me favorites, I should say. So, right out the gate, Dracula's Daughter is not a Carmilla adaptation. I just kind of included it because I think it's a little bit funny that the novella, as I mentioned, predated the book Dracula by about 26 years. And then we get Dracula's Daughter as a film that is a sequel to Dracula, the film, which is obviously more popular than Carmilla, which I think is a crime against humanity, but that's neither here nor there. Plus, it is such a queer movie to come out in 1936, which I think is pretty amazing. The scene where Lily goes to pose for the Countess, like, I love that scene so much. The way she looks at Lily, oh my gods, I would melt into the floor. The queer themes are all over that scene, even when Lily decides to not pose for the Countess and all we see is the Countess approaching Lily, and then all of a sudden the camera pans up and Lily screams. We see no biting in this scene, so I feel like it kind of plays as like a conservative nightmare of like the predatory lesbian, and we don't love a predatory lesbian trope, so that makes this film a little less fun to watch at times. I am shocked to see any queer undertones at all in a movie as old as this one. Not that queer people didn't exist back then, but the Hays Code was in full swing when Dracula's Daughter came out, so I feel like it's surprising that it's so overt. And it's just cool to see. I feel like it's pretty clear though that Carmilla as a novella did have an influence on this movie, whether it's a direct adaptation or not. So 2019's Carmilla is one of my favorites because I feel like it is the best portrayal of like the themes of the original novella. And the main theme I'm talking about here is sapphic longing. It is all over the novella and it is all over this movie. The only difference here is the vampirism is more of a suggestion than it is in the book. But I don't mind it. It honestly feels fitting that people who think being gay is a sin would equate being gay to being a literal monster, like a vampire. So simply having like the barest whisper of a suggestion of the supernatural kind of feels right. Because I feel like sometimes when I read these like old gothic vampire novels, nowhere near as gory or graphic as any modern books that I've read. So sometimes I feel like even just reading these gothic horror novels, the supernatural is a suggestion. It feels right for this movie. I think this movie kind of picks up on that idea. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I liked it. And as tired as I am of the lesbian period drama, the vibes are pretty immaculate in this movie. I will go on record to say that from here on out, the only lesbian period dramas I will accept are Carmilla adaptations, and that's it. Now, I know there have to be some fellow cream puffs watching this video right now. I'm sure you saw the words Carmilla and you just ran over here. The Carmilla web series and the feature film that followed serve as what I think is the best modern Carmilla retelling to date. Possibly the only modern Carmilla retelling to date. It's a simple single frame web series. I love the modern take on the novella. It's very much expanded to include things like a mysterious university with a dangerous headmistress, monsters, cults, time jumping, all sorts of cool things, all centered around the characters Laura and Carmilla, who we are familiar with. It's quirky and goofy and fun compared to all of the other lesbian vampire movies that we have, which are usually dark gothic tales full of just longing looks. Not that I'm opposed to any of that, it's just nice to see something different every now and then. And then the Carmilla movie, which kind of ended out the whole series, was overall very light and fluffy for the most part. Still spooky, and I think it makes for a good kind of like spooky, cozy palette cleanser. Every time I have a stretch where I just watch too many disturbing things one right after the other. And then finally, we have The Moth Diaries. I like this one a lot. It has grown on me. It feels like a hybrid to me of Carmilla and The Haunting of Hill House, at least in the themes. Any of the films that have come out that fall under this lesbian vampire umbrella, especially the ones that came out in the 70s, kind of serve as a projection of men's fears of women's liberation and sexual fluidity. And in these movies, there is also often a male protagonist so that the film can eventually end in heterosexual fashion. But where The Moth Diaries differs is that it's exploring this idea of female friendships and how they can so often look like romances or even feel like romances, and there's, you know, this air of possessiveness around them as well. Our main character, Rebecca, reminds me of Nell from The Haunting of Hill House, in which they both end their stories by squashing their sapphic desires. In the case of The Moth Diaries, Rebecca has to defeat Ernessa, who for Rebecca represents these desires, represents her queerness. I think this film is a clever play on the lesbian vampire trope, while keeping with the delicious gothic dark academia setting that I love so much. And even as I am giving you this update on some of my current lesbian vampire favorites, I still haven't seen every single lesbian vampire movie, so please leave your suggestions in the comments. And if anybody has any book recommendations of this variety, please let me know, because I am woefully lacking when it comes to lesbian vampire books. So if you enjoyed this video, there are 2 more videos that are about to pop up at the end here, then you can keep watching if you feel so inclined. Either way, I will see you next time. Until then, stay strange. Bye.